funny thing about that is Ariel Hawani knows what Romford is, firstly, I find funny. Then knows Big John. Then obviously knows the Bosch. And where he goes to get Chinese in Cosmos is funny because that's what I was doing when we were sort of 14. We first started drinking, or a little bit older, maybe sort of 15, 16, first started drinking. We'd go to the corner shop, get a bottle of Belvedere, share it between us, go to Cosmos, get the buffet, just be...
Oh, mate, yeah.
Slightly
I did that a couple of times.
Debaucherous,
Slightly.
young children, so I always find it funny. I can't even remember what I used to get. I just remember there being a photo of where I've got a melon, a whole melon. So I don't, I don't know.
From the buffet?
Yeah, from the buffet, yeah.
Absolute antics. Look how far you've come now.
Crazy week, eh? Crazy week.
Yeah. I had a watermelon moment as well. Like back in when I was about 17. One of those funny things when you're at a house party and you're just hammered and you think it's funny to put a watermelon in the sink in the bathroom because someone would walk in and see there's a watermelon in the sink and it would be funny. And it is funny. I still find that funny now. I laugh at that.
Not funny on reflection. A lot less funny on reflection.
Maybe less funny. I still think it's quite funny. But then again, everything's a much better idea when you're drunk. And I wasn't necessarily drunk. In fact, I was stone cold sober when I made the decision. But I thought it was a good idea to put money on Corey Sandhagen via submission. So you can imagine my annoyance when it was about 2 seconds away from happening and they got classed as a TKO. I had a sneaky sort of suspicion that he was going to find that submission because Corey Sandhagen... Just we're talking about the card from Saturday night, is a man that is phenomenally underrated, not just in the striking, but in pretty much all facets of MMA. I think we've many times on here spoken on how much we appreciate his work and what he does in this game and how underrated he is. And I thought that even with his lack of submissions on his record, that he would find ground success against Figueiredo, who is aging, who is smaller, and mate, this close. It was only a £5 bet, thankfully. But that would have been a tidy little bit of profit for me, considering I'm someone who's not a huge betting man.
That should be a submission, in my opinion.
That's what I saw. I thought that I was sort of getting not fully celebrating because I wasn't 100% sure. I was like, because he tapped due to injury, right? So you gotta. I feel like that counts.
Which was a submission.
As a TKO. Yeah, but it got given as a TKO. I mean, I think it was ruled as a TKO, and whatever the ruling goes is what the betting agencies go with and the sportsbook go with. That's how it is. But speaking of sportsbooks, I did do my betting scandal video. That dropped the other day. Finally, it took me way too long to put out for a video that was not hugely encyclopedic, let's say. It wasn't a huge project, but it just took me far too long to put out because it was really just a tougher challenge. Same with the Drew Prochazka video. They were just really difficult to put together the way I wanted it to. A lot of times I found myself obsessing over what would work and what clips should go here and the order of things, and I kind of just got lost in the sauce just a little bit. So again, just I'm maybe highlighting a little bit of struggle and frustration for me, at least on my end. I don't know about you and how your work week has been in terms of the production pipeline on every facet, but for me, it's been a little bit of a struggle.
I renamed.
Yes, I did. I'm glad I saw. I was going to message you, but I was like, I'll just save it for today. And you already know what I think. I mean, we spoke about it on last week, so I'm glad you did it. Did you rename it twice, or am I crazy? Did you change it twice? Was it? It was Will _ casual, and then casuals, and then it was Will .casuals. Much better.
That's weird that you know that because I'm pretty sure that I did it immediately after. So you must have just been staring at my profile waiting for it to change.
Good timing.
I tried to get the original handles of casuals, which is just nothing else. However, that is still...
Yes, what happened with that?
Stuck to that account with no posts, no followers.
There's nothing you can do about that.
Activity. I tried reaching out to the support desk. I haven't heard anything back. There is a few other things that you could do, but
Yeah, Instagram support is abysmal. It's like the worst. Half of it's all automated anyway. It's not even ran by people. Nightmare.
Yeah, it is frustrating. So I couldn't get that. So I went with just my name, then the casuals. I am pivoting towards more lifestyle content through the guise of MMA still. I'm going to be putting more training, more traveling, more fitness, more value through things like that. Obviously, keep the food structure, probably double down on that even more. Angle a little bit into sort of, not necessarily health and fitness, but information around how to eat, how to train, how to maintain a physique whilst training, working, just my experiences, and hopefully there should be some value to take from athletes and also just from the general population. So yeah, just pivoting slightly on that, and also just opening it up so that it's easier for brands to land on my page and say, right, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
this is what he does, this is how we could slot into this, and this is how collaborations could work, and so on and so forth. Because at the moment when they land, and it's plenty of viral videos around training, traveling, food, all of those things, but you wouldn't be able to find them because there's so many posts, they just get diluted out. So
good point.
I just had to probably strip back on the daily news, my takes on the headlines and things like that.
Yeah,
at least on that platform. So that's been my sort of redirection.
Instagram's always been something, I think, as a platform specifically, it's always been more about not specifics, if that makes any sense. Like, as I said, pivoting into that broader branding, or not, what's the word I'm looking for? My brain's short circuiting. You know what I mean? Like appearance, let's say, or brand, I suppose. Yeah, as a more broader perspective, it just makes it more appealing towards brands completely. It's maybe different for someone like me, because I feel like it's not as big of a factor. But as I said, on Instagram, it matters a lot more. And it also just opens you up to a wider audience, right? Just naturally, as you pivot your content. And yeah, I think that's exciting. It's an exciting move, and it's definitely the right one as well, for sure.
Yeah, I always had that. We said last week, I always had that Social Network clip in my head of when they're at dinner, and he says, he just turns around and says, drop the. I honestly have had that burnt into my brain since I started the journey. I'm not even kidding. I was writing it on my whiteboard back in the day, but started off Casuals Corner MMA, then was thinking about going Casuals Corner, then just dropping it completely, go Casuals, and then use that as the umbrella brand, just for a little bit more of the technical side of things, to why I did it for some people. Use that as the umbrella brand, and then bring things underneath that.
Combat,
so yeah, exactly. So you've got the
I know the moves you're making. I see it.
Combat, food fighters, even though that's not necessarily casuals within the term, it comes within the umbrella of casuals, so that slots into there. It's all pretty streamlined in regards to the bios of all of the brands, so there is somewhat of a
cohesion.
Smooth transition, a cohesive effort between the brands. So yeah, that's why I've been working on this week.
I was gonna say, just picking up, you sound somewhat nasally, and I feel like you're suffering from the you're suffering from the hay fever massively. I've been there honestly all of yesterday and today.
Not hay fever.
No, just general illness.
Just general.
Yeah, you did say last week you weren't 100% either. No, not your week.
I just felt tired, mate. So
it could be COVID. It honestly could be COVID.
Nah,
because I had it not that long ago. I caught it again, and I was just exhausted all the time, everywhere, just complete. Like I mean, I don't know if you had it back when it was a thing, but I had it. It was bad for me. Just constant fatigue, like a real heavy weight. It almost feels like something's just dragging you down the entire day, 24/7, and that's how I felt. But this week I've just been getting bodied by hay fever, but it does not stop me from getting on the mats. And I mentioned this just before I was recording. Went to an open mat actually this morning. I went to morning jiu-jitsu for the first time in ages, and I'm not built for it. But I have to say, if there's anything that wakes you up better than coffee or just caffeine in general, it's getting on the mats and trying not to die. Because I'm telling you, 5 minutes in, I'm alert and I'm ready to go. But yeah, it was good time. Good little nice to just break bread with people who I hadn't spoken to really, but also just practice some shit I wanted to practice. Finally hit a dart stroke from bottom. I felt like an absolute god, which was sort of like just shifting out of bottom side control and sliding in for the darts because I saw it. I was like, get in. So you take the small wins, even though I did get absolutely leathered in a couple rounds. I got mother's milked. Do you know what that is? Do you know that submission?
Know what that is. I do know what that is.
That hasn't happened to me in about a year. It's just awful.
That right there. Describe it for people that wouldn't know what that is, and then
I know what you're going to say. I know exactly what you're going to say. I'm going to describe it. Essentially, if someone's in, for anyone who's obviously big on MMA, you'll know if you're in a mount position, you're on bottom, so very bad, and the person on top, essentially what they do is they bring your face directly into their sternum, right in the middle of their chest, and they basically just crunch in, drive you towards them and them towards you, and can basically suffocate you completely. and you can basically put pressure on the nose and also suffocate them at the same time. It's both painful and it also feels like you're getting waterboarded because of all the sweat and you can't breathe. It is the worst submission ever. Imagine stuffing a pillow onto someone to put them to sleep, but you're just doing it with your own body. That's basically what it's like. And not fun, but also I did find it quite funny. I had a good laugh about it afterwards, because when do you ever get mother's milked in a round of jiu-jitsu? It doesn't happen very often. So, and I know what you're going to say, because that's your worst nightmare. I know your big disdain for jiu-jitsu, but I'll let you take the floor.
No, exactly that. It's things like that which I hate. I hate it. I hate that. I want to avoid things like that at all costs. All costs, not swim towards it. And also, it's such a bitched move, isn't it? It's if someone hits that on you, it's one of those.
Nah.
You get laughed at. That is what it is. You get laughed at. You get bitched for the round. It's upsetting. Your ego's dented. Yeah, it's upsetting that. And I just don't
not
want...
for me. I don't mind it. It's part of the game, innit? It's actually legal. That's the thing. A lot of people think it's an illegal submission. But in comps and stuff, because a lot of stuff is. I think the misconception that it is because it's quite a frowned upon sub, or it's like people, you lose a lot of respect for doing it. That's sort of the general consensus. Well, I think it used to be like that, less now, but that's just why you don't see it. Because it's quite hard to hit, but to be fair, the guy I was rolling with had a big weight advantage on me, so he saw the opportunity. But I think it's just generally frowned upon. It's like not a courteous thing to do in the realm of jiu-jitsu. But I thought it was funny.
It's just grim. It's just so grim. Yeah. I try and avoid those situations, to be honest. People keep asking me, are you going to grapple? Not really. Hate confined spots. Really don't like confined spots. Really don't like the inability to be... Not extreme, because I imagine there's levels to it, right? And I could do things that I imagine people with real claustrophobia could not do.
Like caving or something.
I have done that when I was young.
That's like my worst nightmare. Yeah, I'm such an extreme, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, right? That's something I want to do. Wing walking. Have you seen that?
What's that? Wing walking?
It's basically when you borderline stand. There's like a stool on top of a biplane, but you're basically standing on it.
I have seen that.
And you basically get strapped to that and they just fly around with you on top of it. I want to do that. And I'm actually planning on doing it this year. So that's on my bucket list. But the same, I would not do caving. This is what I'm saying. I would claustrophobia. I'm shit like that. Hell no. Or like Donald Cerrone doing underwater cave diving. That's like two of my no. No shots.
No, I agree on that. I actually do agree on that. That's one of the most dangerous sports is underwater caving. Yeah. People always
die.
Brown bread from that. Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of that. But I did actually do cave when I was young. Looking back on it, there is no way. I've definitely become more disdainful, if that's the right word, of things like that as I got older.
Cave diving or just extreme stuff in general?
More cave diving, but extreme stuff just because I weigh up the pros and the cons more than I did when I was young, even though I wasn't super reckless as a child. I wasn't super reckless. I was probably quite reckless when I was young, and then I got a little bit older and I would still do those sort of things, but now I look at them and I think, would I?
I think that's
do
interesting.
A bungee jump? Probably not.
I think that's interesting. I wouldn't think you'd say that, because I think the sport that we operate in is innately risky. It's innately dangerous. It's innately got a lot of risk compared to most occupations. And I know neither of us are athletes, but you do train, you do spar, and there's always an inherent risk that comes with that.
Not really.
But maybe to a lesser degree. But for me, the reason I don't really worry about that sort of thing with regards to like skydiving or something is because the statistics don't lie. Like, you got more chance of dying getting in a car, going to training, driving to the gym or something. Like if that's how you commute. But that's what I mean. It's you weigh up the options. People just it's a lot of misconceptions around those kind of things. And it's damn fun as well.
I've done it as well, so I feel like I've ticked it off. Yeah, I feel like I've ticked that off, so I don't have to necessarily do that again. Maybe I would do that again. It was a pretty euphoric experience, skydiving, so I probably would. I don't think I'd be doing the wing walking.
Bit too much for you.
How much would that cost out of interest?
It's actually not that much. It's like £400, yeah. So I might have to I might have to just book it in for this year because it's something I've got to do. I've got to
Why
do it.
has that been the thing that's taken your interest?
I just like, I put it this way: when I skydived, it sounds dramatic, but everyone thinks it sounds dramatic when I say it. But I stand by it. When I was doing in that free fall for those 40 seconds or so, it was like, for me, it was like the best. I've just felt completely content. It's like the best feeling I've ever felt, in my opinion. Like, I've just been at peace with everything for those 40 seconds. I know it sounds weird, but I was just the most relaxed I've ever felt in my entire life, ever. And afterwards, I just felt really sad because it was like, I want that feeling again. So I guess it's chasing that high, right? I get in a lot of ways. I think you can draw that back to MMA, right? That's why these guys fight. It's the thrill of it. It's that adrenaline. It's that rush. It's the crowd. It's all of those factors put together. It's what instills that drive within you, right? That I think that's what fighters. Maybe not all of them. Some compete for money, some for the fame, but I think a lot of them. The reason that at the very least that they get into mixed martial arts and the idea of fighting at the top level is because of that adrenaline rush and that thrill of the fight. For me, it's the same with something like skydiving or wing walking, as we said, or maybe bungee jumping as well, which I'm definitely planning on doing too.
When you were doing it, did you have a feeling along the lines of, if I were to die in this second, this would be a pretty good way to go? Because I did.
I wasn't thinking about dying at all, weirdly. I mean, for me, it would be if I was.
Though. I think you were, kind of.
How do you mean?
Where you said it's so peaceful, it is, right?
Maybe.
So when you're the most peaceful, you're also the most at peace with death.
I think that's true. Yeah, honestly, if I was going to go away out... Well, no, the thing is, though, I probably might be... I'm changing my tune now. My emotions would drastically change if I realised that our parachute wasn't working. Then I'd be freaking... Then I would not be at peace. But if I could feel that feeling right until I hit the ground, sure. We'll say, yeah, why not? But
I think you'd have to put yourself in a mind space of, well, what's done is done.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way. I would pick that way to go rather than many of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely not underwater cave diving. I'd rather not go that way. That's a lot worse. But...
Well, talking of exciting, someone not very exciting, Bilal Muhammad, is fighting this weekend.
Thankfully, his dance partner is exciting and does actually know how to bring a crowd and knock people out or just finish people in general, and that's Jack Della Maddalena. And this is a matchup at UFC 315 that I have been so back and forth on, not just internally, but my stream and their views on it as well. It feels like no one I know can seem to come to some sort of consensus on how this fight's going to play out. And what I've realized after just pondering and thinking about it for a little while is that I care about the result, not necessarily I care about the result more than I actually care about who I think is going to win, if that makes any sense, because of the implications that it has for the wider sport. And I feel like you know where I'm going with this, because the narratives have sort of been at play over the last couple of weeks. And that is, if Bilal Muhammad is to win this coming week, it pretty much locks in and guarantees Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria International Fight Week come UFC 317. Because Ilia Topuria is signed for 317. He has just announced that, I'm sure you saw. And we saw on the Joe Rogan podcast as well, he said he's not fighting for anything besides undisputed gold. So we can make the assumption that the UFC has promised him undisputed title, right? At lightweight, a shot at it at the very least. And who that is against is up in the air, pending the results of 315. So if JDM is to win, that gives the path for Makhachev to vacate the lightweight throne, move up to welterweight, and leave Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria, I reckon, to fight for the vacant title, which, if we're being real, and I know you agree with me here, is not the one we want to see. So for that logic, I want Bilal Muhammad to win because it means we get the Topuria fight. It's a means to an end. Who would I rather have as the welterweight champion? Jack Della Maddalena, unequivocally. Who do I think is going to win? I think it's Bilal. Mic drop.
I don't know if that was a mic drop.
Do you really just asking how? Do you respectfully? What do you think my answer is going to be here?
I can guess, but I want to.
I think we can guess. I mean, it's going to be by decision, a 25-minute grind down. I think the Gilbert Burns fight is the most telling one for me. When he fought Jack Della Maddalena, he was a minute away from winning that decision, and he took down JDM at will. And yes, JDM had some moments on the mat, some good reversals, which actually led to that stand-up break where he landed that knee and got the finish. But I think against a guy like Bilal, who's much more wrestling orientated than Gilbert, I think he's going to struggle even more. I just think that pace Bilal's going to set, the way we saw him mix up his striking and neutralize the striking efforts from JDM with the threat of the takedown. I think that's something Bilal does better than anyone. And I think that will be the keys to victory for him. But JDM, I will not rule him out. We know his finishing pedigree. We know how good his boxing is. I think he just needs to take the front foot, be a bit fearless of that takedown. And as we always talk about, it's a lot harder to shoot for a takedown if you're on the back foot and moving backwards. That's what JDM has to do. Do what Leon didn't. That's the keys to victory for him for me. But it's a very close fight, and there's a reason I've been back and forth on it, because it's a hard one to call, as all good fights are.
Yeah, I think my logical brain just goes towards Bilal doing enough on the feet to occupy the hands, level change, gets takedowns, doesn't really do a lot with it. JDM hits reversals, gets back up after a little bit of a stagnation on the mat. Rinse and repeat, 25 minutes, maybe 4-1, 3-2, something like that. That's where my logical brain goes. And I think that is what happens. On the flip side, I also always talk about moments and momentum and just the stars aligning. And maybe it's just because I want it to happen in a way, quite possibly. But I do feel like that a little bit this weekend with JDM. I really do. I really do. I look at this matchup and I think, yeah, sure, I could tell you exactly what Bilal's going to do. I could tell you exactly how he's going to do it, about how he's going to try and get on the front foot, apply smart pressure, switch between stances, take small steps, corner JDM, get him to the corner post, get him to overextend, then frustrate, take him down, grind him out. I could see all of that. I could see all of that. But I can also see them exchanging on the feet in a boxing range. And JDM just having more firepower. JDM just having more crack, having the ability to actually back Bilal up a little bit. Because that's something that's not spoken about enough, is his chin. Very good chin and incredible conditioning. And you look at all of the champions, the Marabs, the DDPs, the Bilals, their basis is all cardio to a certain point. Their base is all very good cardio. And I do think Bilal is a beast like that. But with all of that said, JDM just has this incredible momentum right now. A 17-fight win streak. He's been finishing...
He's at 17?
Yeah, 17-2 is his record. He lost his first 2. He then wins his next 9. His 10th win is on Dana White's, which actually happened to snap the knockout rate. Slowly built his way to the top. Nowhere near the same pedigree as Bilal on the resume. Nowhere near as much experience. But I don't think it's going to matter. I think there's going to be an opening in one of the exchanges, and I think he's going to hurt him. And I think when he hurts him, he's going to put him away. I think he's going to knock him out, to be perfectly honest.
Whoa, I like that. I like the boldness. I like, as I said, I always prefer when we have different opinions, because I feel like usually we are mostly on the same page. Yeah, more elbows. That's, again, not just for JDM, but for everybody. I know we've said that many times. Not enough stepping elbows in particular. They are demonic. Christian Leroy Duncan is a very good example of those. He, for all of his faults, when it comes to elbows, I don't see many throw better than him. He throws to kill with those, and I hope JDM will do the same come this coming week. But I wanted to say, just quickly before we move on to some of the other fights on the card, speaking of Australians and Australian representation, I don't know if you saw, and this goes for New Zealand too, actually, Engage, the brand represented by Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya, that sort of a whole cohort of fighters. I don't know if you see, I really wanted this jacket that Volkanovski was wearing at 314. And now they've just put it on sale, and I've just been getting bombarded by ads for it. I was like, I have to buy this. I have to buy it. So I am maybe channeling my inner Volk, because that is arriving in a week or so. And I had to pay for extra postage because it's far away, but it is clean. You know, that green and white, sort of green and cream, and with black tones as well. It's like it's almost like a windbreaker jacket. Oh, it's really nice. I will be sporting that at some point on here in the coming weeks, best believe. But I just wanted to throw that one in here. But I feel like we have to look at the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko starting her second title reign her second title reign against Mano Fiorot. And this is another one I just don't know how to call. I really don't. I thought the odds would be more in Shevchenko's favor just based off of pedigree, but my point to make on that was that Fiorot is massively slept on. I think she's huge for the weight class, and I honestly, as much as I love Valentina, I actually think she might get it done. Could be wrong, but what do you think?
think she might finish her.
Really? Valentina? Finish Valentina? Is that what you reckon?
Yeah.
Bold claim. You're coming out swinging today. I think it is. What on the with strikes or with submission? Because I feel like that's a big distinction to make there. You just, I'm gonna need some kind of evidence to back that up. That's a very loaded statement against one of the greatest women's fighters of all time.
She's good. She's old.
I've got a point to make there. I thought the same. That was a narrative I was running with. But Fiorov is pretty much the same age as her.
A lot less dog years, though.
Yeah, true. I was thinking that as well. But
so
you never really know.
You're not wrong, but there's a difference in age. There's a difference between competing for championship belts time after time after time after time, the camps, the injuries, the media, all of that. And then someone that's never had that opportunity and has had about 10 fights in a career, and how many of those have been difficult fights? Not a lot either. She's knocked a lot of girls out. She's got quite a lot of finishes, I think, Mano Fiorot. I watch her fight and I think she's not as skilled as Valentina, but she certainly cracks harder. And I do think they'll exchange on the feet. And again, why not? Just why not? I'm going with the underdogs on this card.
Money to be made.
Maybe I'm not playing into the typical narratives this week. Maybe it's just I don't want that to happen. I'm not too fussed about the outcome, really, to be honest.
I mean, I'd like Shevchenko to win just because she's one of my personal favourite fighters, but that's a bias getting in the way of
she's not for
this
me.
Game. Why not? Out of curiosity.
Because
I just appreciate
the people she's facing.
I don't know if I like that argument though, because I feel like that's just a case of her being so much better than everyone else, rather than people not being very good. To an extent, there are cases where I'm happy to concede that point, but I feel like as a whole of her career, she's just been very good. And the fact that she should have won the second fight against Amanda Nunes, I feel like that's almost unanimously agreed as a pretty egregious decision. Proves that she is. Yeah, but I feel like you can say that about a lot of fights. I know they didn't on the books, but Dominic Reyes deserves a win over John Jones.
No, he doesn't. He actually
Jared
doesn't.
Gordon
That's
does.
a hot take. He really doesn't. Neither does Jared Gordon.
Whoa. No, what? Okay, you really are coming out swinging now. I'm not even having that.
No
way now. No way now am I having that. You've got John Jones beating Dominic Reyes. No way.
However, this is a fact, right? So you can think about this fight what you wish. Loaded. But this is a fact. The fact is, Dominic Reyes did a great job at the start of the fight. He didn't do a good enough job at the end of the fight in the championship rounds where you win championship belts. I do not care what you say because the fact is I'm actually correct. John Jones got his hand raised. John Jones kept his belt. John Jones beat him. Was it the most impressive performance? No. Was it most exciting performance? No. Was it a close fight? Of course it was. But he didn't do enough, sustained over 25 minutes, to win that belt. And you go back towards the end of the fight, he's getting pushed back, he's getting held, he's getting stalled. They're not dominant positions, but he didn't do enough to eventually win the fight, and quite clearly on the decision. And John Jones talked a lot of smack, but he said, Dom, maybe you should put the energy and attention into what you thought I was winning them to fight to actually into winning the fight and looking at how you could have done better. And honestly, I kind of agreed with that because, it was a close fight, but you didn't win. That's the objective fact. So what can you do to then go and win? And I know I'm being a little bit extreme today, but going back to Valentina, yeah, she's incredible to watch compete, right? Her striking's slick. She's like nice grappling. She's pound for pound in the women's rankings, of course. But the reason why she's not my most fun to watch is not because the people she's fighting, not because the people she's fighting are not on her level, but when you go on the UFC and they're dropping older fights of champions and there's title defenses of Lauren Murphy, I'm just thinking, no, she's not my favourite to watch, actually. She's not.
Lauren Murphy, I think, as I said, if I was to pick a fighter to concede on that point, I think Lauren Murphy would probably
Do you see
be
what I'm
the
saying?
one. But yeah, but at the same time, it's hard to deny. Well, how many title defenses was it? 7. She's got the record.
No, it's super impressive.
7 in her first title reign, and now on her second one. So it's like
that's just why I don't get that excited to watch her, if that makes sense.
Oh no, yeah. For me, the appreciation solely comes from just the technicality, like that's not the right word. The technical side of things, should I say? For me, but I understand it. Not the most exciting to watch, but a lot of fighters aren't. Like it's the same way I appreciate Leon Edwards. I appreciate him from a skill set side of things, even if he's not the most exciting to watch. I think he's like well-rounded, or I would have said maybe less so now, one of the best fighters in the division, and he was for a time. We saw that he proved that point when he knocked out Kamaru Usman and then beat him in the rematch. So I think there are exceptions to the rule, right? It's not all about who can hit the hardest. Then again, which one would I rather watch? I mean, obviously the latter, 100%. Would I rather watch someone who coasts to a decision like Bilal Muhammad, or looks for the finish? I'm picking the latter every time, and everyone is.
She's super impressive, by the way, as well. Don't get it twisted. She is super impressive. It's just the reason I say I'm not always that excited to watch her is just because the last few years, as a fan, the fights that she's always been involved in never filled you with much excitement in regards to the dance partner. Now, that's not necessarily her fault, but I'm just painting an honest picture.
No,
the only
I agree.
girl that really kind of gets me a bit excited to watch at the moment is Dakota. It's really the only person in women's MMA really is the only that I care to really watch. Yeah, but
when she makes her mark, obviously not there yet.
Yeah, but she's got her Dana White's Contender Series fight coming up, in August. So she's got that opportunity in the books. Dakota's in this weird ether where, okay, the PFL are going to keep her active against who? Some random girl that they've brought up just to get annihilated. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, she has to come to the UFC. That would really change the women's game if she came to the UFC, because she is just an absolute animal. The UFC needs that. You reckon so?
Of course she would regret that.
I'm sure she's getting treated well at the PFL. Of course she is. But,
Doesn't matter.
It depends on what you value, isn't it? This is what we said earlier, right? Some fighters value the money, some value the legacy, some value the thrill of the fight. So it's like,
what would you have to value? As her, not slandering her, but I'm just being honest. As her, what would you have to value to stay in PFL? What is she valuing more now?
Well, obviously the money.
Wrong.
No?
Has to be wrong. From the micro, maybe she gets paid 50 grand more, 60 grand more.
Why would you want to be in the PFL over the UFC other than getting paid better there?
My point is she would be probably getting a bigger check, but would she? Is my point. Because you come to the UFC and do 1 month of semi-media and then have a fight booked, and then boom, you're in this magazine. Boom, you've got this ad agency on the phone. Boom, you've got this opportunity in America. She's a marketing dream. She's like Ronda, but just fully improved in every dynamic. Better striker.
Different generation.
Yeah, just better striker, a bit prettier, just in better shape, more dialed into MMA, understands sort of the game of media and marketing, and she makes good content. And then on the flip side of that, she has the whole backing of Manchester City. She has that sort of ties into football, and then she has the ties into the celebrity roots. It's a no-brainer. So sure, she may be getting paid, a little bit more in the short term, but I don't actually think she would be getting more money in the PFL. If she made the move, she maybe on her fight purse would be getting less, but I think in the macro she'd be more wealthy, in my opinion.
What, if she stayed or went?
No, if she went to the UFC.
Well, but I'm sure soon after she'd be getting paid more. Absolutely. And it's one of those things where you kind of just have to bet in yourself. I feel like as a fighter, within any promotion, it's just, it's about you. You've got to prove you have the goods. Otherwise, you're not going nowhere. And whether that's down to having the goods on the media side of things or fighting or perhaps both, right? I feel like that's always the constant dynamic we talk and chase about in this game. So she's one of those people, as you said, who's the complete package. So I feel like she wouldn't have no problems. I just don't know why she hasn't done it yet. I don't know why she hasn't made the jump. I'm sure the UFC have come knocking. I'm especially in an era now where we are lacking that sort of, punch power of stars, if that makes any sense. Why not?
I imagine it's because, I'm just guessing here, but I imagine it's because you get your first big contract, if you like, as a fighter, as an athlete. And you've got, on one hand, the UFC saying, okay, we'll give you 20 and 20, right? But we can negotiate moving forwards, and the potential of a title fight isn't too far away, right? And then you're obviously talking more numbers, pay-per-view points, different things like that. But then the PFL say, oh, hey, here's 100 flat. I don't know what she gets paid. Maybe it's less than that, but I wouldn't imagine it's too far away from 100, about 100, I would say.
That's what I would
maybe.
have guessed.
If I were to guess, I'd say it was somewhere around that mark. And then you've got someone saying, right, okay, here's 200k guaranteed. Competition is easier. Let's be real about that. And you can be the face of our promotion, and here it is guaranteed flat on your first ever big deal. This is an unpredictable game, you know. Sometimes you have to just take what's actually guaranteed in front of you to change the life of yourself,
like
and
the
your
Grand
family.
Prix and stuff, like, you know, the big tournaments, you know, for the $1 million prize pool, 100,000 down. Yeah, a little bit. How do they even afford those? I don't understand it. I mean, I know they're less now, right? Already, which just kind of proves the point.
Grams?
I mean,
500 grand.
I mean, I'm not complaining. If I'm winning that, I'm not complaining. But...
No, but equally, it's got cut in half over the last year, so it doesn't sit well, does it? For
it just proves
company.
the point that the UFC just reigns supreme. And speaking of actually the UFC, I think it's a good place to sort of round off on. I was torn on my video that I was going to work on the next project, and I wanted to do a properly big one. So this is what I'm going to do, and it's almost like a spin-off kind of. Let's call it an extension of my history of the UFC video, in the sense that I wanted to cover each era specifically and sort of characterize each time period from whatever I tend to judge, whatever, like the COVID era, for example, or the Zuff era, the Dark Ages, that sort of thing, right? And do an encyclopedic look at all of them. How would you feel about that? Is that something you would, if you put yourself in the mind of an avid MMA fan viewer? I know, you know, you're probably like me, you don't watch a huge amount of MMA content because our life tends to just revolve around it. But if you were a general consumer of MMA, casual or hardcore, where would you see an appeal in a video like that? Like
into the generations?
Yeah, I'll call it every era of the UFC explained. That's a good title format. Is every blank explained. That works very well. Not just for me, but in general. I feel like it's a bit of a maybe not a home run. I don't want to be, you know. A lot of times my intuition, sometimes it runs away with me and I get it wrong. But a lot of times I do get it right. Sometimes I'll come back to this actually. I come back to my history of the UFC video, which is now my most viewed video. In fact, it's literally probably as we speak about to pass 600,000 views because it's still getting views today. That I remember when I was negotiating a brand deal for that video, and I was on the call with this guy who ran this sort of jiu-jitsu clothing company. And I said to him, I was like, I'm telling you, this, I really put the chips down. I went all in on it. And I said, listen, I'm telling you, this video format and idea is so good. I guarantee you, not guarantee, but I could say with very, very high confidence that even despite the size of my channel, this video will pull 500,000, maybe even 1 million views down the line. And I stood on that because I was that confident on it. And lo and behold, that did happen. That guy got a phenomenal deal, can I just say? Unbelievable deal, because the amount I got paid for that in comparison to how many views he got off of it, unbelievably good deal for him. But
I wonder what the conversion rate was.
Oh, but it wasn't good for him at the time. But to be fair, the video was only on like 50k at the time. But
I imagine what the conversion rate is to this day with all those views to that product.
Oh, what, in terms of him getting sales, or how much I could charge?
Just like general conversion from your video to his product.
I mean, I've seen his brand a lot more. Really, it's actually kind of trippy. I saw a couple of people in my gym wearing it, so there you go. Clearly, must be doing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, it was not. I mean, good deal for him, and I was happy to do the deal anyway at the time. I just backed myself because that was a case where it wasn't. You know, normally you do negotiations over email, and they're with much bigger brands and stuff like that, much more corporate, right? You can kind of just push the boat out a little bit. With that, I really just backed myself a lot more than I probably have done in other cases. And I just sat there with confidence that I'm telling you, this video will get this far. And that feeling of confidence and excitement towards an upcoming video is what I'm trying to get to with every idea that I'm actually executing on with regards to making a video. That's the feeling I want to have every time I work on a project, with that level of confidence where I know, or I'm so convinced it's going to do well. And yeah, that might blow up in your face sometimes, and it does, and it has happened. But more often than not, I think it leads to success. And I think if I do this era video, I feel like there's a place for it. I feel like there is a place for a video like that on the YouTube space. But I'm glad you're in agreement, I have to say. That does give me a bit of confidence. So then again, it's not like your word is everything, but you never really know in this game. But I don't know, but you know what I mean? It's difficult. It's stressful when you're working on a larger scale project, right? Because it's a much more of a time commitment. You spend a lot more effort into it. So you want it to be the right one. You know, you don't want to spend all that time working on something that no one's going to watch. So that remains to be seen. Jury's still out on how it will turn out, but starting the writing process today. So it's just, doing all right. We're doing okay. But I think that is a good place to wrap it up. I know a little bit of a shorter episode, but we are kind of under time constraints right now. But this has been the MMA Creators Podcast, episode number 101. And we will see you very soon. Have a good one.